Good evening, welcome to the school board meeting. It's Monday, January 25th, 2021, 7 o'clock. On the Susan Kelly Lively Boardroom at 1887 building. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Mr. Pride to call roll.
Mrs. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Gayhart.
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Here.
Mr. Martell.
Here.
Here. Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mrs. Ray.
Here.
Mr. Scarrow.
Here.
Ms. Grakowski.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here. We do have a quorum. We will continue. I will note that this meeting has been noticed per state statutes. Do we have any community participation? Anything to read in?
No.
I didn't see anybody on the screen, so we'll dispense with reading that. Overnight travel request for HOSA.
I know, very convenient.
How convenient.
I let Mrs. Spanky know that it was, I'm very confident in Ms. Grakowski's ability.
Yes. So I'm the president of Wisconsin HOSA, and HOSA is an organization for students who are looking to be in the health professions when they're older. And so we are holding our state leadership conference this April, and thus far all of our conferences have been held completely virtual. But the executive council is looking to have the state officers meet in Chula Vista to film the conference like in person, and then have those videotapes sent out to our members rather than having it be like a live virtual conference. So I'm looking to stay overnight, the 10th, 11th, and then possibly the 12th, depending on how our plans go. And as far as the chaperone goes, it might be Miss Stunky, but otherwise my mom has said that she could chaperone me as well.
Okay. Awesome. Questions from anyone?
Different year.
Yeah. Nice you guys all come in with all your medals on. And
Oh yeah, we all sit up there in the front. Yeah. Yep.
We love it. Congratulations. Well, I don't want to be. We just need a motion. We're gonna say congratulations on breaking the ice of overnight travel.
Right.
Yeah. But sorry, the school board.
Yeah, we denied it. Anything else on that? All right. Well, looking for a motion, I guess.
I move to approve the overnight travel request from HOSA as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the overnight travel request from HOSA as presented. Roll call.
Mrs. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Gayhart.
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mr. Martell.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Yes.
Ms. Grakowski.
Yes.
And Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yay.
Yay, thank you guys. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I've never seen these kids before.
Oh.
Like, we've been working together for like 6 or 7 months now.
Oh
I've
my
never seen them in
goodness.
person, so it'll be exciting.
Yeah.
We are starting to see summer events and conferences.
Yeah.
Trying to schedule to go back to face-to-face. Now, whether we get to do it
Right,
face-to-face
we
or
don't
not,
know.
we don't know, but
Right.
we're planning. We're
Yep.
going to plan as if we
Plan
were.
for the
Yeah.
best.
Right, and then they can always cancel and then we'll deal with it from there.
All right. Approval of board minutes. Regular meeting from January 11th should be attached to your agenda. Questions or comments? Hearing any? Looking for a motion? There's only one, so we can do it.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the January 11th, 2021 regular session school board meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's a good cadence for it.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the January 11th, 2021 regular session school board meeting as presented.
Mrs. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Gayhart.
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mr. Martell.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Yes.
Ms. Grakowski.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Motion carried. General other fund bills, Mr. Truan.
This evening's general other fund bills covers checks number 141902 through 142052. Wire numbers 663 through 670, ACH check numbers 216 through 235, and option renovation wire numbers 657 through 662 in the combined amount of $1,931,539.36. And then included with your bill listing explanation on several of the bills in your board packet, and then a copy of the treasurer's report through the month of December. And we included a supplement report in there. You may have seen that. It's for our special revenue accounts to give you kind of a flavor of kind of the activities that flow through there. And it's sorted by site. So I think the first school you see there is West Side, and then it goes on to Tibbetts, and then it goes on to Jackson, and middle school, high school, district wide. So there's I think 130 different activity accounts that we have right now. So I'll probably put that together maybe quarterly or a couple times a year just to show you kind of the activity in those different accounts.
I did have well, not so much as a question as, could you expand a little bit more on the cleanup that was associated with the water damage in the classrooms and the art room back the end of December? So I saw the bill, the 18,000, whatever, for the damage, and then it says in your notes that there's an additional 6,000 for the replacement cost of the supplies and equipment. And you thought that you're still gathering the replacement cost likely to be around 10,000. The insurance claim deductible is 25. So help me understand those numbers a little bit better, because I'm seeing 18,000 as the cost, but then there's still a potential of another 6.
Correct.
Or,
Actually, the 18,000 was the cleanup cost associated
Okay.
with that. So we had Keelman Associates come in. They did assessment. They did an inventory of all the damaged material. They brought in the dryers, the dehumidifiers.
Yep.
They dried everything out. They tested it. So over probably about a week,
Yeah.
in a couple of days. The good thing, if there's any good thing out of all of that, is it was during
is
break.
break. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So that's a cost in itself.
Sure.
And then the replacement of the chiller unit, and then the fixing of that would be a Johnson Controls invoice, which will probably be about $6,000 for their time.
Okay.
Our custodial time was pretty much just using our existing custodial staff during their regular work hours, so that's not really included in the cost.
Okay.
And then the replacement is all of the material that was water damage.
Okay.
So to be honest with you, it's probably the worst room in the entire high school that could have
No
got water.
kidding.
I mean,
No kidding.
Yeah.
Computer room, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a computer room.
No, but you're right. I mean, it's some expensive supplies.
So what, you said the deductible is 25. What's, so what part of all of those expenses is can be claimed?
Anything over the 25,000 will be our reimbursement through the insurance company.
Okay, so we can claim that we can add up the 18
Exactly.
and the 6 and the 10 and,
Yep.
Okay, got it.
And we kind of self-insure up to 25,000 in our
Okay.
district budget.
Okay,
So to be honest with you, it's much cheaper to do that than to
Yep.
try to buy.
to buy, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lower deductible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
So how did this happen, I guess,
What we discovered was a door on one of the air handling units on the roof came loose and blew open. And it probably happened, we had some pretty strong wind
Yeah.
before Christmas and that cold weather.
Mhm.
So it was right around that time. And that brought in the cold air. And when it brought in the cold air, it froze up the actual unit. And
so
Then it
this is,
started.
but this is on the newest part of the building, right?
part of it was Barb.
Okay,
And then we had 4 classrooms, which would be along the English hallway, which would be like the northwest.
okay,
And the system then turned off, the boiler system, because it lost water pressure. And that's what happens. And then when it refilled itself and kicked back in, eventually those units, which would have been the units in the classrooms, had some leaks. So then you had steam released in those classrooms.
I thought we had like alarms, maybe it's not us, maybe it's someone else, alarms on some of those systems. Maybe we had some on the old boiler at West Side or something, we had some alarms. So is this something we should be looking into getting?
Yeah, we have a Metasys system, so some of that could be control related.
Okay,
But to be honest with you, we also had those systems running quite a bit during, they're almost on 24/7 now with the COVID environment.
Okay.
If we would have had regular shutdown mode,
Yeah,
then we may not have experienced that, to be honest with you.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so
it's kinda
we solved
unique.
the problem so that it doesn't blow off again.
What we did, our maintenance department went around basically and checked every single unit in every one of our buildings.
Okay.
So to make sure, and what happens after they've been off and on a number of times is that the screws just kind of,
Oh, okay.
kind of,
All right,
Sure.
so
So they had
that
to
now
replace
it's on
them.
our maintenance list that we look at periodically.
yeah,
All right, I wouldn't hate to see it happen again.
absolutely.
We get some really strong winds over on that side.
And even though it's,
Even
self-insured, we put the claim in so that it's the beginning of the school year, of January, that basically our 25,000 is basically seen. So if something happens in the spring or summer, that it's not a hidden thing that the insurance company would know.
Yeah, Paul, we have it as a per occurrence,
Oh,
so that would be a
Okay.
separate.
Oh, it's per occurrence, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, but I didn't know that.
I'm assuming because of the per occurrence, then we didn't get any insurance claim on the fence.
Right.
the tennis
Didn't
courts.
hit a
Yeah.
threshold, yeah,
okay.
unfortunately.
Do we have a cap then for number of occurrences?
No, it's not the way our insurance is structured. I mean, we have a cap for all on our entire insurance, but it's based on the total value of all of our facilities.
Mhm.
Okay,
So we have a total loss
Yeah,
to reach
yeah.
that, yeah.
Oh, insurance.
So it
What a
was
racket.
unfortunate.
No kidding.
You know, I
It's so
will have to,
complicated.
compliment our maintenance staff and our custodians, because they responded and boom, they started cleaning and they knew
Okay.
exactly what to do and got going
Yeah.
on it. So,
Good.
Yeah.
and it still is unfortunate. And then
I
also,
felt bad for the art.
in our art
Jamie
department,
Richards.
yes.
I know, my heart
It's
just
good.
broke her
Yes.
Jamie.
Well, now the photo came out of the art department that we had tonight, right? So there was something that did come out. So.
I ended up when there's nobody in the building, so maybe
Yeah.
they would have caught it if it,
Right, if it happened,
might have felt some cold air or something. What's
Right.
that?
Right.
Happened during
oh
the
well.
multitude of things.
That was all that I had, was just a question on that.
My one question is, how can you have a negative account balance for the Fund 21?
It's a deposit for a reservation and they'll be collecting monies. I believe it was for the Grand Geneva.
Okay,
So that's not unusual. They have to make a
Oh, okay.
deposit on there and they'll collect monies.
okay, all right, I just was
Yeah.
wondering. I mean, there's enough in there to
Yeah,
balance it, that we're not,
correct. And usually we look at that at the end of the year because by then they'll have the resources.
Okay.
So,
all right, sounds good, thank you.
Other questions? Hearing nothing, looking for a motion.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of January 25th, 2021. Check numbers 141902 to 142052. Wire numbers 663 to 670. ACH check numbers 216 to 235. And options renovation wire numbers 657 to 662 in the combined amount of $1,931,539.36 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
To move and second to approve the general and other fund bills of January 25th, 2021. Check numbers 141902 to 142052, wire number 663 to 670. ACH check numbers 216 to 235, and options renovation wire number 657 to 662. Combined amount of $1,931,539.36 as presented. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart.
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mr. Martell.
yes,
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Mr. Kara.
Yes.
Mr. Kirkowski.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Motion carried. Discussion report items.
So over at the high school, we had our snowball week last week. We were very fortunate to be able to behold Mr. Elf, decorate hallways, and also have a virtual assembly. This past Wednesday, there was a suicide awareness panel that met in the hub. The veterinary science class in the agriculture department had 2 bull calves come to the class so students could study them. At the middle school on Thursday, the middle school forensics team had their first meet. The PTO donated prizes to the PBIS cart so they can now give away books. They are promoting Tech Savvy Virtual, which is a workshop for girls in grades 6 to 10 that is designed to inspire and encourage STEM fields and careers. At Tibbetts, staff at Tibbetts were offered a free drink at Caribbean Coffee. In art class, kindergartners learned about the American painter Jim Dine, and Parent Connections was able to provide families with a link to watch Cole's Wild Theater performance. At Jackson, the Jackson PTA held a fundraiser at Hernandez Restaurant. Jackson is doing a secret spies program where 2 teachers are spies looking for 2 students who are extra kind. And Jackson also had a dress-up day for the high school snowball week. At Westside on February 1st, they will be kicking off their Kids Heart Challenge. And this past Friday, they had Packers Day and kids wore green and gold to school. Over at Options, a new session of blended learning will begin next week in their newly renovated Options building. And there will be a community open house scheduled in May. And then at CCA, they had a virtual open house today. Youth Build started a new cohort of students, and they started their first day on the job site. They also became OSHA certified and completed CPR training. And then Fleet Farm in Delavan helped outfit the Youth Build students with equipment for the job site, such as steel toe boots and hard hats.
Thank you. All right, Options renovation.
Right.
Now.
Getting closer. They bring in students next week.
Wow.
Cool.
So they're nearing the finishing touches, the final testing for the HVAC. The Wi-Fi has been a little bit of an issue getting the fiber connected, but I think that's up and ready to go now this week.
We've got a different solution that is hooked up and operating as of today.
So for a virtual school, that's critical to have it.
Yeah.
That's a relief. But this is the new front lobby. I know that they'll have, I can't remember, they have a plan for this area as far as an artwork or a sign. Some of you may have seen or heard about the 85-inch TV down that was in the lobby there. It goes right here, or it's an electronic sign for those units in their lobby here. Trisha and the team did a great job picking out the finishes and the furniture. I was impressed with what they did. This is over on the far entrance. It's set up as it'll be double buzzed in as well, and the 612 administrative assistant sits there and will control that door. So we have a separate high school, middle school entrance, elementary, little entrance. The bathroom, again, they haven't done the final deep cleans yet, and they're still in some progress, but perhaps the greatest improvement in the school building
I was gonna say that
was the restroom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, they're looking great. You got the boys, the girls' restroom. This is looking out, this is actually a new hallway corridor. And in the past, to get out for recess, they'd walk through the gym and go outside, or you'd have to go all the way down to the end of the building. So this was punched through with the locker room being renovated and the bathrooms being changed, so they can go straight out to the back now. This is the new locker room, so it was made smaller, but it still has a changing area for people to use and officials to use if that building's being used for that. So this is a typical finished classroom. This is more high school level type classroom for the students. Again, being a virtual school, it's rare at that high school level that you go in there. You just don't have like 20, 30 kids in a room at a time. Yeah. This is the gym. I haven't seen this in person since they put in the new lights and painted the ceiling. It looks so much better. You can see the paint going on. There's going to be soundproofing wall panels that will go up as well, similar to our other elementary schools. They'll have all this done by Tuesday and cleaned up, and then the floor will get refinished and repainted over spring break.
Okay.
That time frame. On this wall here, there will be a horizontal climbing wall, like what's out at Tibbetts.
Sure.
The kids really like to enjoy that. So where it's at, it's looking good, coming together, and it looks like we're still waiting on some windows to go, but the windows will be in from the ground all the way up.
Okay.
Which gives a lot of light.
Yeah.
Good. Anything to add to that, Bill or Paul?
No, I think most of the construction is pretty well done. Then it's just the finishing, like the curtains and things like that, which will be coming, but the finish line is in view, that's for sure.
Those operable windows supposed to go in tomorrow and Wednesday, weather permitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a
Wednesday,
couple of days
Thursday.
later. Yeah.
And there's a couple late additions, like we noticed at the bathroom corridor. So there'll be a few things that are still getting touched up, but that's more, I'll go ahead and show you. So in this, you see the tile work that comes right here. You can see in this mirror, to the right is the boys' bathroom, to the left is the girls' bathroom. Well, we want them to extend so this wall that's right around the corner is tiled. We want them to extend the tile out because that's just, it's going to get all scratched up and banged up. As you walk in the hallway, you're going to just rub, it's going to be a hand contact. So they're going to extend the hands up. The other one you can't see is the downstairs has a lot of really nice storage space for curriculum materials and so forth, which they don't have anywhere else, but I'm concerned, and we're concerned with them carrying the items up and down. The stairs to the basement aren't, they're code, but they're not like a typical
They're
stair
pretty steep and
spacing.
narrow, yeah.
They're steep and narrow, and so we're working on either looking at putting a dumbwaiter in the old chimney that's there, that they can load it with the storage items and ship it up, or a lift, what's it called, that would go down, like the senior lifts, but they make them just to carry items on that will fold up. So that's something that, I really want to make sure we get put in there, because that's, in the long run, a lot safer for our staff.
Sure, right.
Pulling stuff up and down.
Less injuries and.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. All right.
All right, COVID update, our favorite topic.
I think we'll just, we're plugging along. The numbers in the county are just over 100 now. It's looking much better than, where we were in Thanksgiving and Christmas, knock on wood. We did have the JV1 basketball team that got quarantined as a result of an exposure there. So that's probably why that individual count number is much higher than it normally would be for a single exposure. But we're even seeing the number of exposures quarantined outside of school come down quite a bit. So that's really a good sign that at least maybe we've made it through this wave, and hopefully immunization starting to come around that will help us in the community out. Right. It'd be really nice if we can make it without having another large wave like we had. I think that's probably good on updates, but the other links are there if you want to look at. Policies. Hey, the policy committee's been very busy and looking at and reviewing policies to recommend, and there's a couple brand new ones. The first one, and these are here for the first reading, so if there's anything that comes up afterwards, we can bring that up, is an anti-racism policy. And this was, we were working with originally the student alumni group that attended school here that also had some community members. And, they brought up the point of, we do have our Title IX policies. And working with that group, they brought up the importance of defining and specifying in more specificity how to address racism, what's tolerated and what's not. And this is the result of looking at several different district model policies and combining them. The policy committee spent 2 different meetings on this to refine, revise, review it, and create this new policy here. It's not just focused on racism, it also includes of other individuals or protected groups, but the primary focus is related to that anti-racism component. I guess right here I would say the policy, all forms of racism, sexism, classism, destructive of their mission, values, growth, and goals. I want to make sure that we included that. We didn't feel a need to write a separate policy for sexism, classism, and so forth, but we wanted to include that. Are there parts or portions of the policy? It's a lengthier one than our typical policies. I think at the heart of it, though, is a focus on utilizing restorative practices initially to help students learn about when they make those, whether it's racist remarks or take racist actions. Restorative practice is not so much like just assigning a kid a detention is not really a restorative practice. It doesn't allow them to make amends or improve the situation and or learn from it. Part of what we want to do are teach the kids and or the adults in certain circumstances on how to improve, how to better themselves, and how to address it appropriately. It specifies actions that can be taken as well. Talks about the curriculum and instruction. We went through a lot of what we're already doing with our AVID programming and our curriculum materials and our instructional materials are in place. We put in the policy the directors of curriculum instruction as being the ones to provide oversight and so forth. There's a lot out there in education, which you can go to Teachers Pay Teachers. There's a lot of internet resources that are out there, which we want to encourage our staff to use. But before going and implementing in their classroom, we want to make sure that they're reviewing it with our directors of curriculum instruction and vetting it. A couple of years ago, we had a summer school teacher who deviated from the Elkhorn Area School District curriculum, utilized her own curriculum, very well intended, but it didn't match with what was approved for us to teach. And unbeknownst to us, until we started getting parent complaints and phone calls and questions on what is this. So we want to make sure that we have that vetted, and both Amy and Sarah are excellent at their jobs and on top of best practices and equitable solutions. So that's outlined there. Our hiring practices. We want to screen for implicit and explicit biases. I think in our process that we do and our type questions that we ask, we're able to identify that. We may need to add another question or two, but that's really just identifying, are there biases of that, we don't want to hire a racist or a bigot if at all possible when they're wearing it on their sleeve. So we do check for that, but that's just like we don't want to hire someone who's not empathetic to kids to be in a teacher role. I mean, there's a lot of qualities and traits that we're looking for. Policy enforcement. And then it outlines, and what we found is it was really important to outline the procedures for investigating. So the people, if they had a concern, that they knew what the process was, if they shared the concern and reported it and have that communicated out. So we outlined that there as well. Any questions or areas that would like to review in greater detail?
Is this something that needs to be reviewed by Boardman and Clark, or is it, or is this, are we free to just create this on our own, or are there specific laws that we need to be including? I don't know.
Yeah, we could have Boardman and Clark review it, but with us being covered with the laws that we're not required to have an anti-racism policy.
Okay.
So we're required to have the Title IX and so forth
Yep.
through the federal that we went through.
Yep.
And we do reference some of those additional policies there, but there's nothing in here that would have a legal
Okay,
entanglement. As long as you're not going below what's in a policy
Sure.
standpoint, what's required, you're okay from that
okay,
legal standpoint. And the policy, the models that we did pull from are from larger districts. There's not a lot of districts that have the anti-racism policies
okay,
adopted and or in place at this point. I think you're seeing more of that. So Kenosha was one that we used, Cincinnati, Ohio, and one from Virginia, which had a good model, and we pulled components of that we felt that are our best interests.
We had a lot of discussions about, just even a couple phrases here and there.
Sure.
So we went through it a couple times before we ever even got to this point.
okay,
I think one of the good things to say about it too is which is kudos to the district, is most of the things that are in here we've already been doing.
Right.
yeah,
So it's not like we're adding a lot of work to because I was concerned about adding a ton of work to the teaching staff
yeah,
or the other staff, whatever staff, all of our staff during the middle of a pandemic.
right,
But Jason assured me that most of the things that are in here, I mean, there is some new things that we have to implement, but for the most part, I think this is stuff that we've been doing.
okay,
Right. We didn't.
And it's just,
Right, we didn't want to burden the teachers as it is now, because
Right.
some of the phrases, that's where we even changed phrases, because it made it sound like, well, each teacher has to do this, and that's where Jason said, no, that's what the directors of instruction are thinking. So, yeah, we were concerned.
okay,
So, yeah, and just as an example, like this develop and conduct an annual systematic equity needs assessment for the new school district. The middle school and high school participated in the very first group last year in the state, and they went through and did that needs assessment. So, and then with our work with Abbott, that's also built in a portion of that. So our K-5 level, and Amy, they can easily take that over and bring that into that K-5 level, which they'd already begun as well. So it is, a lot of the timing's good. I think the district's come a long way. I think from when a lot of the people that are on that working group and that committee that brought forward a lot of these ideas and suggestions on Word. To give you an example, we have some of these committee members who, when they attended school, there was roughly 45 participants in advanced placement classes. And now we have well over 400 that just take the exam.
Yep.
And not everybody takes the exam.
right,
And we had some of those students who were told, you're not supposed to be in this class, and actually literally had the kids transferred.
oh my
Now,
gosh,
the individual feels like it was, because of their race. I mean, we have a teacher on our staff who was a former alumni who was pulled from the AP class and told, no, you have to go to EL. I said, what are you talking about? I'm fully fluent in English. I said, no, you're Spanish speaking, all Spanish speaking kids we want in the EL class. And they get to take the AP class. So those are forms of institutional
wow,
barriers that are there. Those are broken down. Those aren't there. We're at the place where we're checking to make sure now, are we breaking down the social barriers or other items that are stigmas or that early intervention so that the kids are prepared and ready to take those classes so they have an equitable experience. So
yeah,
there's always work to do
Yeah.
along those lines, but it's kind of heartbreaking to hear some of the stories and the experiences that
yeah, no kidding.
some of the individuals have. Not that long ago, talking since 9/11.
Wow.
But if there's no other questions on that one, this is a first reading, so we'll bring it back next week and really, let me know if there's anything that comes up. A chance to look at it. The next item is I shouldn't say I've been talking and looking at this, talking with John, our community engagement coordinator for some time, and I know Bill, and looking at our community-based programming, and we hired Mr. Anselon as that community engagement coordinator. This was an area that had a lot of potential, or has a lot of potential. reason it's not coming up. This way. So we want to create a policy which is really an opportunity for individuals and groups to register community clubs or an organization. And what this allows us to do is really expand our offerings to not just that K-5 level, the K-8 level, but also anything that's community-based to utilize our resources from, we have our Fund 80, which is for community-based programming. It's the only area that we have control where we can set that levy based off of our desire to support that community program. And so now that we have Mr. Anzalone in place, and he's doing a fantastic job, and we have that work rolling, we feel it's a good time to bring that forward. So and expand the opportunities for our kids in the district and the community. Keeping in mind that these would be for any organization that it would have to be open to the entire community, whether they attend the Lutheran private school or they homeschool, they'd get to participate in these clubs or organizations. So basically it just outlines that they want to become, what they need to do to become a community-based club, and a recognition that they'll have to be inclusive of all community members who reside within the district boundaries, as well as Elkhorn Area School District students. So say, for example, youth football, if they wanted to be a school district community-based club, that's fine, but then they can't go and have tryouts and cut kids from participating. We don't do that within our school district. We find a spot for the kids. Varsity level is the only level where we say not everyone is going to get to be on varsity, but we'll still allow kids to be on the practice squads or help out with the team or coaching in a different area. And a recognition that at that point as well, with it being an Elkhorn Area School District entity, the oversight and advisory support will be provided by the district, as well as fiscal support may be provided through Community Service Fund upon request of approval. If the approved, the leadership of the club will be required to have an orientation with the engagement coordinator or their designee. And then this is the registration checklist, the items that they need to have. We kept it fairly simple, again, but it provides us with enough information to know what are they looking at from a budget standpoint. It does ask what their bylaws are or what that's going to be, so that gives a little bit more information. Questions on that policy that coincides with the new practice?
My question is, are these clubs, once they're approved by the district, are they fully funded by the club itself, or is it a joint partnership between the district and the club, or is that yet to be determined?
Yet to be determined, but what I would envision is just like our other sports programs. Myself personally, I would love to have large enough budgets for all of our programs that they don't even have to fundraise. But even all of our sports programs, we cover basic essential costs like, officials and travel, things like that, if it fits, within what they need. But then our budgets are not so substantial that the groups don't have to go and fundraise. So for example, I think our varsity football budget's $5,000 a year for, their supplies, so to speak, and equipment. But that doesn't quite, I don't think that would quite cover their helmet reconditioning. So they still have to go out and fundraise. So I don't envision it as being 100% everything covered, but one of the goals is to keep prices down for kids, so access and opportunity is there for them. I hate seeing an elementary level kid want to go and be in, baseball and have a quality experience, but the family say, well, no, we don't have $300. So we want to subsidize it, make it reasonable and good for the kids, but there's going to have to be a ebb and flow there. We're probably not going to just say, okay, well, here's $20,000, go for it. Nobody has to pay, anything or do any work. But at that point, to clarify, when they become a part of the school district, that clubs now, a school district club, they could still maintain like a booster for that club if they wanted separate, but it would be part of the school. Do you have thoughts on that, Ed? I'm
No,
curious,
just-
because this is a new concept.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to understand how it fits in with all these other like, programs where they're like a traveling league, and I won't pick on any sport in particular, but you've got these people that are, I guess, aggressive with their teams, and I would
Well,
think
it's a
that
business.
this is more of a community-based thing where we want all kids to participate at whatever levels they're at,
Right,
Right.
and so that they can get introduced to sports.
right.
And even though they're not great, they have a great time and they learn through that experience. And I personally support events like things like that, those types of organizations. So I'm trying to understand how I can help promote this, for our community. Because when I first came back to Elkhorn, the rec program had really what I thought quality programs where all kids would participate at all various levels.
Right.
And sure, there were some teams that were much better than others, but that's just kind of how it is, You
Right.
got two parents that have two talented kids, and then the rest of the crew kind of fell along and they were more successful. That was okay. That wasn't that big of a deal. I'm just trying to understand how I can best help support something like this for community, because I think it's a great idea.
So does this conflict at all with what the community rec program is doing, or like, is there a gap there that they're not servicing these kids, or?
I think we were talking about this today, I think it'll be interesting moving forward. I think the rec program is servicing the kids.
Okay.
And they have a great program, they do a great job. I think there's also, and this may very well be eventually at some point a partnership with the rec and or looking at that. One of the challenges, and a lot of people forget, is the rec program is a city program.
Correct.
Which is all funded by city taxes, yet it services the district boundary. So
Right.
a lot of school districts partner with the cities and actually ship rec through the community service fund, because then you're getting an equity in the taxpayer base covering the expenses to run and operate the programs, when in reality the cities do provide those services. I think what I've seen though, like Ed talked, we'll give an example, in basketball, you've got, I don't know if the rec even runs basketball anymore, because the youth basketball club has been inclusive. So if anyone who wants to go out for basketball, they can go out for basketball. I could see them as being a great fit for something like this, because there could be, one, they would get perhaps better reservation access being a school program and getting better priority. They could get some budgetary support to help offset that. And they're already following school guidelines on being inclusive and giving availability to everyone, and it wouldn't undercut the rec. I don't know if they want to or not. I haven't talked to them. But then in basketball, you also have a more select level that a lot of people maybe called AAU.
Yeah.
Well, that's where they're doing a lot of traveling going out.
Right.
That wouldn't work for this. That's a
No.
selective program
No.
that's
Those are businesses.
pulling kids from all over. That's a business. They want to make their money. Yeah.
Right.
Baseball has a similar type structure. What I saw, there's rec baseball, but then there was also desire, to be frank, from our coaches, at some instances, to get the kids more time on task. Because rec doesn't hold winter baseball practices.
Right.
My kids go to a practice once a week for 2 hours. Well, it's a lot of skill development that they get. So there's a desire out there to have that next level, but not necessarily in our community. We have rec, we have like that middle ground baseball level where they're playing regionally, and they try hard to be inclusive, but we've seen some fissions with that on team splitting and so forth. And then you have a more elite where they're traveling to Florida, to Tennessee, to all over, and they're paying big bucks for that, which is fine. And I don't see that ever going away. But if we can give stability to those lower two levels, or those more community regionally based type programs, I think that would be helpful. Also, our youth programs, and I served on a youth board for the girls basketball. They're very dependent fund, which any organization is, the goodness of the heart of the volunteers running that organization. And so forth. Having the district oversight and being able to reduce some of their board requirements, because having a 501c3 has certain requirements, and so it may simplify the process and make it easier to recruit and retain good people in those positions. And it also, I don't want to just think from the athletic standpoint, we could have a community, a parent, I would love to see this, a group come up and say, hey, we want to start the Elkhorn Area School District or the Elkhorn Community Chess Club, Youth Chess Club. We need a budget. Here's our budget for it. We'd like to go to 4 tournaments in the year and meet weekly. Boom, great. Here's the process. Here's how to do it. And be a little bit more inclusive of people, not just relying on the teachers or the school to start it, but engage some community members with the protections, though, that they need to go through a background check. They have to pass our voluntary process and be available. So I'm excited about it too, and not just in that sports angle, but broadening that out to some of those other areas. And leveraging the financial resources that we could pull from that Fund 80, because adding the programs isn't going to have, we get a lot of bang for a buck. It's not going to impact the levy because overall it's a very small dollar amount that could fund a lot of really neat and great events for the community through that community service. Any other questions on that? All right. Rules governing, let's see. The facility use guidance. This is a minor language change, but very significant in the application. I want everyone to be aware of this because it might ruffle some feathers out there. I just want you to know what we're stepping into. Okay.
Nice.
So
He's
the way our community groups work right now, and you'll see this is the priority when approving requests. It goes school-sponsored activity events, City of Elkhorn, PTOs, and booster clubs, number 2, and then community groups, number 3. Why this is so important is because number 4 and number 5 are non-community, not-for-profit organizations that must have a 501c3 status and then for-profit. It's in the lining up. I just had a friend of mine from New Glarus, the principal, and he's the head football coach, call me because they're doing spring football. They said, hey, I know you've got the indoor facility over there. We'd like to come over on March 13th to do a 2-hour indoor practice, if we can. It's booked on Saturdays from 6:30 to 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And we had a high school at Greendale, although thank goodness I would have kiboshed it too if I was their administration, but their coach and AD had reserved the facility. The only time they could get it was from 9 to 11 on Mondays and Wednesday nights. They were going to come down 2 nights a week on a school night and practice from 9 to 11 and then ride the bus back to Greendale.
Oh my goodness.
That's the only time slot they could get into. So the reason why this is so important and where you see some of the jockeying and the maneuvering with the groups is just to get access. Our rates are so reasonable. We only charge $100 an hour for a facility that it really comes down to what's the availability. So
That is 0.
what?
Yep.
Which I'm not opposed to on the outside groups, but we want,
Yeah.
I mean, John brought that up. Should we look at the pricing or not? But I'd hate to then pass on increased cost to our kids.
Right.
But so we looked at previously the language just read community groups. 80% of the participants are Elkhorn residents or students. So we may have a club hypothetically there that looks at that and says, well, 80% of our entire club are resident students, but then we've got this elite select team that maybe only 30% have to be. But the way that language was, it was being interpreted that as long as our club is 80%, we can then have the select team where we can pick and choose who we want from Elkhorn, pick and choose who we want from Burlington, pick and choose who we want from Whitewater, put them on a team, and they still get that scheduling priority under the awesomeness of the club. So this digs a little bit deeper. It wasn't meeting the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law is you can go and do that, but you don't get to bump Elkhorn-based teams out of that. And so I feel that in the policy committee felt that this corrects the spirit of the law by narrowing it down to teams. It also gave an unfair advantage, or could give an unfair advantage to some individual teams where they're a select team, but because they're under a 501c3 community group, they're circumventing other select teams that have the exact same makeup with some Elkhorn kids, but their overall group. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm just, the community club or organization, how do they fall? What would they fall under on your, would they be a school sponsored activity?
Yeah, they would, yeah. So it'd be in that number one tier priority. That's why I said one of the big advantages would be to become a district-based club. Now that wouldn't mean that the district-based club would have to be only Elkhorn kids. It just legally has to be open to everyone in Elkhorn, but you could also have participants from outside of Elkhorn participate in that, but they're not cutting Elkhorn kids. So the opportunity is still there.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah.
What percentage of time is left after the first two categories have been eaten up all the time?
John, is John on? I would have to ask John. In the winter right now, it's, I don't want to say it's crumbs. The groups still get in that are here within Elkhorn, but they get in awkward times. I would have to, John would be best to answer that.
It's 90% of the time taken up by school sponsored and, well, the first two categories.
Oh, no, I would guess, Bill, do you know from someone looking at the time and I would say 50% of the time by school, by category one, maybe?
That's probably
If that
accurate.
at the most.
Yeah.
I'd say at tops 50%.
And then number two.
The number two doesn't use up very much, hardly at all.
Time is
And so I don't know if the school sponsored even takes up half. Because you figure practices are over by, what time are you guys done with practice after school? By 5? And then that facility is open from 9 to 11, or 5 to 11, 6 hours a night. It's open. And then on the weekends, they don't practice on the weekends. They just, if they have a game. So on the weekends, that's all booked. I would guess school use might be more 30%. If we really calculate out the hours.
about not being able to get time. So from
You mean from school groups?
no, from outside.
Oh, from outside
From the
groups.
number 3 category down.
Yes.
That it's almost impossible to get. Yeah, unless you're baseball or soccer.
Because of the field space availability.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because they take up a lot of space and time.
Well, and there's a lot more fields, like baseball has dedicated fields. And, soccer has a lot of designated fields, but you're just talking the agility center? Okay. And that may be the groups not getting to the meetings where they set the scheduling, because they work out, they have meetings where they invite all the community groups and they push that out. And if they go to that meeting and then they set up for the next quarter, spaces. And if they're not in on that time frame, then it's hard to squeeze in after that. And then the school sponsored activities will always bump. So if something gets rescheduled, they'll bump out.
Does that need to say must have 501c3 status, or are you just leaving it?
501, because there's different 501.
Yeah, I know there are,
statuses,
that's
so.
why I wondered if you were just leaving it.
Any other questions on that? If there's a group though that has questions, I'd have them talk to John, or we can talk later.
As long as we talked about the pricing, have we compared our charges, our fees to other districts in the area?
We did initially when we opened it and set it. There's not a lot of schools that have well, there's private sectors that have the indoor facility, but like Sussex Hamilton, when they looked, they weren't even letting outside groups use their facility. But it's something we can have John look at again and do an analysis.
Okay, well, I just was wondering.
Is our pricing covering the maintenance and the wear and tear now?
You know, I think it's something we need to continue to look at. Certainly if we have,
Right.
if we have to have our staff there to oversee, then we charge the group. That's on top of the, like the rental.
Okay.
So we recoup those costs, but just the wear and tear kind of things, I mean, I think that's something we need to continue to look at, to be honest with you.
Because, did I hear you right? It's $100 an hour?
Yeah,
I can't fathom that covers anything. I mean, I really don't. That's
Yeah.
way too low. I think that's ridiculously low.
yeah. Pretty well.
Yeah, but I'd be happy to have somebody justify it, you know. But I just, like I say, I don't have the numbers, but $100 an hour doesn't go very far when you're heating a place and taking
Yeah.
care of the turf. I mean,
When the pricing was set, it wasn't designed at a rate to be like a replacement or that ongoing. It was designed to cover our staffing costs and or utility costs there that wouldn't be covered when it's our community groups. We have access to the community service fund to cover those expenses. And with the LED lights in there,
Yeah.
they're really efficient. I think Mike said it was like $19 a day to run the lights in that facility. And that came up because when we had a lightning strike, the lights stayed on.
Right.
And you'd have to manually come in and shut them off. And we got complaints, why do you have the building all lit up? And I talked to Mike, he said, well, because it costs me twice as much to send somebody in on the weekend, because I have to pay them a minimum hour to come in and turn them on and then turn them off. So it's cheaper for me to just leave them on.
And they got mad anyway. So we-
And I said, well, yeah, but politically it's not cheaper, so have them come and turn it off. But to get, and so part of that was when we're bringing in, we wanted to cover those operational, that cost. It's not a dollar amount that will really put much into a maintenance cost. And maybe we're to the point where we don't need to have outside people come and visit and see what we had, but we also viewed it as an opportunity for a lot of marketing in a sense, that because the events are here, they get to see the school, they get to see the district, they get to maybe make friends from Elkhorn and feel more comfortable about enrolling and maintaining our members. But you're right, if that turf had about I think it was a 12-year warranty. It should last longer indoors, but you're still looking at, that was probably $500,000 for the indoor turf system at the end of the day.
One of the things we did start last year though, is we were allowed to do what's like a charge back. So we charge Fund 80 for them using district facilities. So it's kind of an internal charge, like a bill. We actually create a bill and invoice to them for just rental and use and wear and tear. So I think last year was like $4,500, something like that. And then we book that in the general fund and it's in a fund balance separate account. So it could be used for maintenance or replacement in the future. So we kind of started that, but it's something we need to revisit.
yeah, let's just look at it. I mean, it just doesn't feel right.
It's just not the agility center. I mean, you could get the gym at Westside too.
Right.
For now, or the Suki gym.
And they're all the same rate, or?
No, there's different rates for a gym, different rates you can rent the agility center by quarters or the entire piece. And there's a different rate. I think it's $25 a quarter of the agility center. So we'll have John at this next director's report share on that.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Thank you.
So I'll have Jody make a note of that. Have John present on that at the next one. We can revisit it. All right. Early graduation, the committee looked at, we want to make a couple updates to this. Basically, we use the Board of Education Policy Committee, and then strike the other language. For early graduation, we long as the kids have the credits that are required to graduate, we've always approved that. And then related to that, we also have another update in the procedures. As part of the requirement for early graduation, they have to have the parent approval. And then we've created an early graduation exit survey, which is an online survey that the students will go through and complete. We do have in here that they were to, somewhere it was written that they had to do a written request, and what we found is there was a huge variance in what they're writing down on the reasons why. So we felt providing them through the survey a template for this is what we really want to know.
Right. Can
we'll
we
allow
help
for
these
that.
kids more? Did they need more here? You know,
Why
or
are they
what is their
leaving?
true reason for going on?
Is there a reason?
Yeah.
We just weren't getting that information out of them.
Right.
We constantly found ourselves wondering, well, why is this kid leaving?
Right.
Yeah.
Or
You
what,
look at the
what is their
grades,
plan
yeah.
post
Like
high
if
school? Are
you're,
there things we can, that the district would pay for that would be helpful to them?
Right.
Even if they're going into a career right away, you know what I mean?
Right. A lot of them were, I
Interesting.
need to work.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
Well, or
okay.
they just didn't want to be in the building, but there's
Right.
less things we can do or not in the building. So it's just kind of like trying to figure out, you get like a standard set of questions.
Yeah.
So has the survey been generated that you wanted to fill out?
we've created it. It's just waiting once the approval of the policy's done, we'll make that go live.
Okay, and when,
I question the striking of request and replacing it with approval. Don't you just want a parental request? Or how do you define approval?
Well,
They
the-
sign off.
I think you want the parents to request that the student is allowed.
I think the reason why we put that in, Paul, is a lot of these students are no longer minors when they're submitting.
Right.
But we still wanted their parental approval of that. So we found that a lot of the applications are being generated and filled out by the students themselves.
And then I think we should clarify that if you're of age, you're pretty much on your own, but the approval, if you're of age, you can request for yourself and have it approved by your parents. But if you're under age of the consent, then it should be at the parent request.
Okay. We'll make some modifications to that for that second reading. I agree. I think that provides some clarity to speak to if they're a minor or if they're 18 years or old. Because legally, if they're 18,
They can
once
do
the semester after they turned 18, they don't need their parents'
Right.
permission.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. All right. So make note of that. Okay. That's all we had for the first readings then.
Recommendations. Yeah. Rita Galpis is now allowed to retire.
I agree.
No
I'll second
kidding.
it.
She on here?
She is, I saw it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Rita's on there. All right, I told you, Rita, that's why I wasn't gonna
Rita,
push it
you're
out to the whole
Her,
school
yeah.
until it went to the board.
Not accepting it.
I heard this was,
Sorry.
I heard this was just a formality.
Yeah, I don't know who
It's
told you
not.
that. I didn't tell you that.
You're not allowed to leave.
All right.
Oh, I don't want to, but it's just time in my life to move on to something else after 38 years. I'm not leaving because I love my job. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love this district, but it's just time for another chapter in my life.
Oh, we're happy for you.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand.
We understand.
Yep, very much happy for you.
But I have to say, Rita,
Yes?
I'm gonna try and say this without crying. You made such a huge difference in my family's life, in my son's life. And I know for a fact that he wouldn't be where he is today without you. So thank you.
My honor and my pleasure. And thank you for your kind words.
Yes, so congratulations to Rita on the job almost well done. She's got a few more left. But I know she's not what I don't know if it's baggy at all. She's still full of energy, chomping at the bit and working hard. So thank you, Rita, and congratulations.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll be around for the next 5 months. Don't worry.
We also have the resignation of John Lysett as a assistant baseball coach. We want to thank him for his service over the past several years as a assistant baseball coach for the high school.
For a motion to approve.
I move to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for January 5th, 25th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for January 25th, 2021 as presented. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Yes.
Did I say Mr. Scarrow?
I'm sorry. Whatever works.
All right,
Pretty
Ms. Gurkowski.
Yes.
And Mr. Reed.
Yes.
All right.
Motion carried. Who gives?
All right, we have a number of school gifts this evening. Present. And they are as follows. Angela Bodermacher donated candles, lip balm, face mask, bath bomb, an infant mobile, nail polish, and 462 books to the Parent Connections program valued at $1,581.
Nice.
Delavan USG has donated 495 masks to the district valued at $400. And Greg and Jill Wells have donated $500 to the Health Services Department. We want to thank all of them for their generosity.
Sure do. Looking for a motion.
I move to accept the generous gifts as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We moved and seconded to approve the gifts of Angela Polmacher, the Delavan USG, and Greg and Jill Wells as presented. Roll call.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Gurkowski,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Motion carried. Second reading of policy 72.
Okay, I did not have any requests for changes since we last reviewed it. Should be ready to go.
Other comments? Otherwise, looking for a motion.
I move to approve revised policy 872, public complaints about school personnel as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So moved and seconded to approve revised policy 872, public complaints about school personnel as presented. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Ms. Gurkowski,
Yes.
and Mr. Reed.
Yes. Motion carried. Announcements?
All right, I don't have any announcements of significance other than I am monitoring the weather tonight. We're an inch off of it being a winter storm warning. So I'll wake up for the 3:45 a.m. webinar and check it out with the bus company.
Don't give them any hope. If you can walk.
Unless that forecast comes up with an inch somewhere, but, yeah, Jody's monitoring. My kids are texting me, this is Layla, cancel school, please. So,
We're taking a foundation tomorrow.
Lobby.
that's all I have, but, yeah, so unfortunately, I hate calling things off in the morning, but it does look pretty nasty tomorrow. In all seriousness, the bus company was very concerned with the
Right.
blowing wind,
Right.
because even if they get out and plow the roads,
Yeah.
the amount that it could blow. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll see. Early in the morning. That's always hard because the roads don't look the same at 4:30 a.m.
Yeah,
as
we're
they
doing
do
the
at
whole
6.
foundation tomorrow.
All right, that's all I have.
Motion
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Any- Oh, moved and seconded, adjourn, roll call vote.
Oh, I always put my pen down. All right, Mrs. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow,
Yes.
Mr. Bukowski,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
All right, everyone have a safe ride home.